Welcome to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. This is your host, Travis and John. Travis, how was it?
John, that was great, man. What a great conversation. It definitely has a lot of good information that I really enjoyed.
What was his name?
Why you got to do that?
Come on. Travis was on a hard time with the last name. I'll butcher it for him. It's Shane Weinischke.
Sean, I mean, it sounds good to me. Yeah, we have Shane Weinischke from Tallahassee Jiu-Jitsu down in Tallahassee, Florida. He's a first-degree black belt. Like I said, this conversation is great. We had a good time. The hour flew by. The main topic that is kind of like over this whole conversation is how privileged people are now in jiu-jitsu and how it's so much easier to gain knowledge, learn techniques, freaking have a black belt teach you, right? Like, what are some other stuff that we talked about, John?
We talk a lot about that. He talks a little bit about competition. I think some people will get some things out of. Maybe some etiquette around rolling in your gym with bigger people.
Oh, yep, I forgot about that. Yep.
A lot of good nuggets in there. You know, this is one of them that I'm going to go back and listen to just for myself. I think it'll help me out as well.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. Shane's super down to earth, real easy to talk to, and he's one of those people that, you know, you could tell that he just wants to put out as much good information for the community as possible, and he wants to make sure that, you know, the martial art stays legit. You know what I mean? He even said that after we got done talking. He was like, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, we keep it pure and we don't let all these, you know, like what karate and taekwondo happen to them come in and, you know, start taking over this martial arts. So, but it's a great conversation. His social media is going to be down in the description below if you guys want to go follow him and check out his stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it. John, you got anything else?
Nope. Give it a listen.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think. And shoot us a DM, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all that, TikTok, YouTube. And yeah, we'll catch you guys later. Peace. Oh, look, you did it with me.
3, 2, 1. Happy New Year from our friends over at Manscaped. The ball has officially dropped, but that doesn't mean you have to drop the ball on your balls in 2023. Whether you had a New Year's kiss or not, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming have you covered for your much-needed resolution of bringing sexy back. Join the 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code ETP20 for 20% off plus free shipping. Let us have a toast for a new year, new you, and a new you without the pubes.
A grooming routine isn't complete without applying the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver before showing up yourself in 2023. These unique formulations take care of the smelliest parts of your body and are the biggest boost to your confidence in the new year. Been using Manscaped Crop Preserver and ball deodorant for the last year. Just about every class I go to jiu-jitsu. It's phenomenal. Absolutely love it. Couldn't recommend it enough.
If you really want to make 2023 the year to remember, make sure you try out Manscaped's wet goods as well. This includes their ultra premium body wash, 2-in-1 shampoo, and body deodorant. I love that stuff. I can't get enough of it. I really like the body wash. I love the shampoo. It smells great. And
cheers to new balls in 2023. Get 20% off and free shipping with code ETP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using code ETP20. Time to feel sexy and free in 2023 with Manscaped. Shane, how's it going, man? How's your day going down in beautiful sunny? Is it sunny there in Florida right now?
Very sunny, very nice.
Yeah.
Chilly, but I can't complain compared to Washington State, I'm sure.
Oh man, yeah, we were just talking about before we press record and how it's been raining the last couple of days. It's been horrible. It's like my front yard gets flooded, and
we have ducks swimming around in the front yard right now. That's how much rain we have.
Yeah, too bad we can't kill them because duck is delicious. Nah, honestly, I don't know if I would want to eat domesticated duck in like my front yard. No. We have a bunch of deer that walk around our property too, and they'll just come in the front yard, hang out. You can like almost go up and pet them. But someone, was it you that kind of like, you don't want to eat those because they get in trash and they're not eating their natural stuff, so they're probably not going to taste as good. So let's go ahead and jump into the conversation, Shane. So we contacted each other on Instagram and wanted to have a good old conversation. But let's go into your background on who you are and how you got into jiu-jitsu and everything.
All right. I started training martial arts in 1991
Oh,
Wasn't
wow.
jiu-jitsu, it was karate, and just kept training karate until I think about early 2000 something. And one of my karate instructors actually told me to get in his guard, which is like just get between my legs. And it's like, man, what? This is weird. But after he did what he wanted with me and submitted me and swept me, I was instantly hooked. So kept doing jujitsu since then.
So what got you into martial arts then?
Oh, I think probably movies. I remember seeing the Ninja Turtles and that kind of era of seeing martial arts on a film.
So you said 91 is when you started. How was karate back then in 91? Was it still like how people could talk about like watered down it is nowadays, or like how different was it
I
back
would
then?
say is a lot different than now. Is more commercial. The
Mm.
place that I remember was really tough, and you'd spar like the first week, and the instructors were always like more like drill sergeants than nice people with smiles, which is kind of a benefit to that, really, because now you see instructors with the big belly, and it's like they're telling people to do stuff, but they can't really do it as much as even the students. So yeah, it was a tough school, but it didn't last that long. I think I was there for maybe 2 years, and then they closed shop. I called Taekwondo Take Your Dough because the instructor took the money and then left town. Was the story that I heard.
Yeah, it's interesting because we hear it so many times. People starting off in these traditional martial arts of like taekwondo, karate, and things like that, and they they don't know any better. Like, I literally just watched the thing on Joe Rogan before he started jujitsu. He talked about how, he's like, oh, I don't need to worry about the ground. I'll just evade all their stuff and kick their ass before they're able to get me to the ground. He said, within the first 5 minutes, he was just getting mauled, and it was a big eye opener. When you trained, those years in the karate and taekwondo and stuff like that, like how has your mindset changed since then?
I mean, they already now with all the data out, everyone knows if you can't fight on the ground, you can't really fight. So
Right.
that's just a part of fighting. And I mean, sure, if you have good enough stand up and take down the fence, you won't even have to deal with that. But um, a lot of people don't. A lot of people that do jujitsu don't wrestle or do judo. So even that is like, how are they going to get the person to the ground? Sometimes can be an issue. And I mean, wrestling is an old martial art, and you see a lot of Americans, and I mean, everywhere all over the world, wrestling is very dominant, um, and it helps jiu-jitsu. So I encourage all my students to always have wrestling, which I wouldn't have known back then when I was a kid. Otherwise, I would have rather been in wrestling than taekwondo.
Yeah, it's interesting now too because the whole dynamic of jujitsu is starting to lean a little bit more towards wrestling too. It's
Mhm.
starting to change. Like ADCC rule
Yeah,
set is people think it's a jujitsu competition, but it's actually a submission
right.
wrestling competition, right? So there's more of the wrestling aspect to that, and we're starting to see people now just really starting to hone in, like doing wrestling specific
Hmm.
training, and trying to build that grit that does come from wrestling.
Absolutely.
Like I wrestled a little bit in high school, and it was a completely different mindset the second you walked through those doors and got on the mat. It
Absolutely.
was you're going 100%. You're there is no breaks. It's
Mm.
like practice, practice, practice. Do you think that's something that's kind of missing in our jiu-jitsu community right now?
Like you said, it's picking up more, especially after the last ADCC. Like I see a lot of schools that I know is like they're switching more programs to no gi. I started off with no gi, so
Mm.
it wasn't really. I'm surprised it took this long. I don't know. Catch wrestling and all that's the same stuff to me. Um, any grappling martial art is going to help the other grappling martial art that you do. You know what I mean? So one of my old coaches, Richard Cronkleton, was in the UFC. He always was to me just like the most well-rounded grappler, and I saw that. I was like, man, that's crazy. He's a wrestler, two-time NCAA wrestler, and then judo black belt. So I'm
Mm.
expecting him to say, "Oh, you need to work only on your wrestling." No, he told me you need to work on your back and play guard. I was like, man, this is wild. But he's a very well-rounded grappler, so that's always what I try to tell the students too. Is like, man, it's a supplement for your jiu-jitsu or whatever whatever you're training, grappling, martial art, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, sambo, any of these things will help you. Catch wrestling, it all helps the other one. So
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned, like with the internet being so popular now, people are starting to see, these become more prominent and kind of like people say you should work on wrestling, but then there's also people out there that are making techniques for like jujitsu wrestling. You know what I mean? Because wrestling doesn't perfectly translate over into jujitsu, right? Because in wrestling, you never want to be on your
right.
back, right? You'll belly down and just starfish out there to make sure that they can't. But in jujitsu, that's not perfect. You know what I mean? So it's cool to see how people are starting to kind of infuse it into how it can benefit for jujitsu too. I think with the internet, it does a lot of good and bad for jujitsu because it allows us to spread information better and like show new things, but then it also allows us to spread information and show new things, right? I'm sure, like you mentioned, you've been doing martial arts since '91. How has jujitsu, like when you started jujitsu, what was it like versus now?
Well, that's funny. A bunch of people meet in a room and you get the best position you can and squeeze as hard as you can. It's like, man, it's terrible jujitsu back then. It took me 17 years to get my black belt. So my opinion is, it's like again, the resources back then, we didn't have YouTube as much. It was more of like instructionals on the black belt magazine, and you would order them for however much money. And Caesar Gracie was one of my first instructionals, the old instructional, and then a few books back then. No black belts were around really teaching techniques. So now there's black belts everywhere. There's black belts on Instagram and YouTube, and if you want to look up any technique, you can go on YouTube and click it, and it'll go right to a nice instructional for you. So we didn't have anything like that. It was more gritty, I would say, and just try our best we could do irresponsibly. But
Was that more like in people's garage, or was it like an actual
we had
school? Or
that. We had the garage, but there was a kung fu school, which was successful for a while, I guess. But then we would borrow the space when they weren't there and do, the Fight Club MMA style grappling, and
Mhm.
a lot of hard headed people in there. And it just kind of started. MMA was the first thing I did before I even did jujitsu. So it's kind of like I did everything backwards. I learned how to fight after I had already fought. So it was a lot back
Right.
then.
Hmm.
Florida,
Yeah, so
amateur back then. So it's like either you're going to go to another state and fight amateur, or you're going to sign a pro contract in Florida and just go ahead and jump in there.
and best of luck. Just like enjoy. So you mentioned it's kind of the mindset has changed. It's definitely was more gritty back then to now, where people are kind of training more for
Yeah.
longevity. What was when do you think the switch was for jujitsu to not be like Carlson Gracie is always talked about as like they were the rough training, they were real hard on each other and whatnot. When do you think that mindset kind of switched?
I think it's still out there. There's a lot of schools
Yeah.
that are, like that. See, I still like to, because we come from a Carlson Gracie background style. So
Mm.
that's fine. I like that. But you have to be educated before you go that hard. So it's like a fast car driver, like a NASCAR driver. They don't just drive a car the first time going 200 miles an hour. You learn to operate a normal car, and then we can push the gas a little more and go harder. And then the quality of training partners in the room, quality of
Mm.
training. So if you have a room bunch of knuckleheads and they don't know what they're doing, you're just training this way. It's like you're not really learning anything beneficial. You might get tough, but you're not going to get really good.
Yeah. So how do you incorporate training for your new people when they come to your academy?
I typically say train 2 weeks of all the technical classes, and then can start sparring after that. Which is some schools they say 6 months to a year. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, because jujitsu is very hands on, and you have to feel that resistance. And we used to let the people, like some people would invite their friends on the weekend only. It's like, hey, come train my school on the weekends. First class is free. It's like, that's a sparring day. These people would never come back. So I've learned this on the business side. It's like, look, probably tell the beginners, oh, you've never grappled before. Probably start Monday through Thursday for a week or two, feel comfortable, and then come into the sparring classes.
So do you spar after every class, or is it just the Friday through Sunday that you do it?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday is like more of just open sparring. So you can start standing, you can start in positions, whatever. Monday through Thursday, I'll have the set of curriculum. So let's say we were playing like single X guard or something, or full guard, or at the end of the class, I'll have you do situational sparring. So now you learned the technique that you drilled. You feel like you learned it. Let's see how good you learned it. Give a little more resistance. So it's more situational sparring. I feel it's like safe compared to a non-wrestler starting on their feet wrestling. So that's a lot of liability there. People want to learn wrestling, but they never wrestled before, and they're 30 plus years old. Probably going to get hurt.
Preach.
Because
I like the situational sparring. We've been doing a lot of that
it's
lately.
very underrated still. And the best in the world say all the time, it's like, oh, they start in these bad positions. You might want to listen to this. I think it's a very good way to train. And
Yeah, I completely agree.
very important to designate your training partners. Very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we tell people all the time, you're worried about these, like, learning these techniques, especially nowadays, like we mentioned earlier, with the abundance of information. But really, you should be learning how to apply the techniques in situations. You know what I mean? Whether it's situational sparring, like, hey, someone's, you have them in 3/4 guard, now you need to wrestle up or get back to full guard or something like that. Like, you're in these less advantageous positions that you should work from, because you're more likely to be able to apply the technique then, because you're not starting with, hey, they're in your open, let's start an open guard, pass or submit. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot that could go there, and I'm not going to remember exactly the technique you just taught me. Right. So putting people in more situational positions of, like, hey, now this person has, he's shoulder smashing you from side control. Now you need to be able to shrimp out, frame, get that leg in, and kind of work from there. Did you originally start doing that, or how has your coaching changed over the years?
Oh, wow, man, my coaching's changed and leveled up more than I would say like anything else. Like coaching, you learn so much in coaching. Like just today, I watched some sparring. Is like now I have the curriculum for next week because I saw a lot of little things that people were working on, and it's so even in the just technical days, you'll feel like you've sparred because you'll drill the technique a certain way, slow at first, and then I want a medium pace. Okay, now I need y'all to go faster. You only have a 2-minute round. I need you to hit as many of these reps as you can. So now when they do spar, it's automatic. I learned how to train my muscle memory over time. Something like this, like muscle memory, where it's like I don't have to think about it as much. And I try to put that into the drills, and it's like, okay, you can't think in these 2 minutes. You have to do it. But it's confidently because they've already done it slow and medium. I've already seen them do it perfect. I've already had to correct this and that. They already understand. Now you let them push the gas a little more, and that gives them confidence that you typically come in and spar. And you want to hit it in sparring is what you really want.
Yeah, we talk about that too. Is like, you got to have someone that you're able to hit these moves on in sparring. Also, your training partner, you can't always train with the higher belts, because you're never going to hit that. Well, if you do hit it, it's probably because they let you. But you know what I mean? Like, you have to have those equal or lesser skilled training partners in order to practice these techniques too. You know what I mean? And I think that's also another underrated thing is having a mindset of, I need to train with someone that I'm able to do these moves on. And or even kind of like alluding to it beforehand, like, hey, I really want to practice the technique today. Could you not smash me for one round? So I try.
I have a brown belt, and he's a big, strong guy. Very good, very technical. Like, he will use all his athleticism to not let you do nothing. Like, and I had to tell him today, I was like, hey, that guy you're sparring with been training like 5 months, man. Like, you train technique. And he's like, oh, I'm doing technique. It's like, you're not letting this guy breathe. You're not even letting them. And then later rounds, I could hear him coaching the guy a little bit. I was like, all right, that's what I want. Like, help the guy a little bit. Like, sometimes, it depends. But the situation. It can be a lot of different scenarios. But if the guy is a good training partner and he could be your best training partner in a few months to a year, man, help the guy a little bit. That's what the instructor does. The instructor, if they're good, is teaching you how to beat them. So when I see someone just completely smash it over and over and over, it's like, man, you could probably let them get anywhere you want and them still not do nothing. So just maybe train. Yeah. Different kind of mindsets on training for sure.
Yeah, generally those partners, they'll find themselves having a hard time getting partners after a while. Everybody will be like, nope.
Yeah, man. You hurt everybody in the school. Nobody wants to train with you. You break your toys. You can't play is what I tell all the.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's true because, it's like, even when you are a newer white belt and then like a brand new person shows up, it's really hard, and I'm guilty of it too. It's really hard not to like assert dominance on that new person because you're like, look, man, this is what's gonna happen. Give it a couple months and watch how I smash you, and then it could really have an adverse effect on people.
I just so I don't trust anybody, especially a brand new person. Like they say, on a white belt, they could be a wrestler, a judo player, they could be a crazy person. So I don't trust them, and I take, I protect myself because it's a martial art. I'm learning, I want to protect myself, but I don't have to prove a point. Is the thing? It's not a competition. It's just not a competition. Even a self-defense, I'm not competing with this person. I'd probably just neutralize, and it depends on how dangerous that person is. Put them to sleep, or handle that a certain way, but. In the school where everybody's laughing during the warm-up and now I'm going to kill the brand new white belt, I don't know. I will catch and release a lot, especially with a bigger guy. Because if every time I catch in a submission with a bigger guy and now we reset, now that bigger guy wants to come really hard at me. So what I would like to do is I will just dominate the position, correct some things that I'm working on probably, and move from position, submission, and so forth. Like, train the game and keep him from getting crazy on me.
John has a secret technique called "I'm old."
Yeah, I'll normally start it that way. I'm, hey, take it easy, man. I'm older, dude. Then we start. That only lasts for like a minute or two. They're like, yeah, okay, asshole.
Yeah, all my elbows hurt. Don't go on this elbow. And then, okay,
yeah. So when it comes to your new practitioners, is there any techniques that you don't want them to learn right away, or are you kind of, if it's in a controlled environment, it's okay?
Everything, man, for sure. Yeah, I like to show. If I find something real new, I'll tell them. I'm like, look, I'm not good at this, but this is very important. It looks like, and it's good to learn the safety version of it, anyways. I know a lot of instructors are against the leg locks, but that was some of the first things I ever learned was leg locks. So,
yeah, we've heard it before. Like, don't teach white belts wrist locks or heel hooks, or really. You love wrist locks?
It's a game changer right there, man.
I love them too.
So good. If they cannot submit with an arm lock, triangle, omoplata, just go to the wrist.
That's right. And it's so funny that people think these are dirty moves. It's like it's joint manipulation.
I just use it honestly because it helps me slow down the bigger, younger, stronger athlete that's going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Anything that's like that works good. I like it.
Yeah, and it makes them think you're like, oh, they're not going to armbar me. I'm nice and strong. Well, your wrist is not. So
and self-defense. If you fight a guy bigger than you on the street and you try to triangle choke him or arm lock him, man, that could be really hard. But an ankle lock, foot lock, or a wrist lock is very nice.
Yeah, we started incorporating them. I don't know, probably pretty close. Once we got our blue belts, I'm pretty sure that's what we
immediately.
Yeah, it was like immediately. Like, oh, by the way, blue belts can wrist lock, and I was like, oh, you guys are going down.
They changed the rules so many. That's one thing confuses me as a coach. It's like they change stuff yearly or every few years. When I was a purple belt, they DQ'd me twice for like a knee bar, and what do you mean? Like they're like, no below the waist. It's like, man, I'm a purple belt though. They're like, yep, against the rules, DQ. And then the year later, I think I get my brown belt. They're like, nah, blue belts and up can do all the straight ankles and straight knee bars. Man, what about that DQ though? Back then it was illegal. And then when I was white belt in Naga, they would allow everything. Heel hooks in the gi, white belt. They don't care. It was pretty wild back then.
So how do you train your students now when they come up to you and say, "Hey, I want to compete my competitions 8 weeks out"? How do you approach that?
They better already be consistent when they ask me, typically, or I just kind of will say, well, we'll see if you're ready, you know. But and I mean, it's free country. You can sign up for the tournament, but I just want them to be confident in their plan, their game plan, and even a fallback. Like, okay, so you're terrible on your back. We're gonna train guard and escapes and getting your guard continuously until you feel confident on your back. Maybe they never even play on their back in a tournament. So I like to get their confidence up, build their weakest game as confident as I can, and kind of go from there. I mean, conditioning is always going to be king, so I try to get them in shape as best I can. Yeah.
Do you do any like mental training with
Oh,
them?
sure. Yes. You have visualization is huge. I've had great coaches that have taught me about this. Seeing yourself on the podium. The day you want to skip the workout, think about that's the day you're going to compete. Oh, wait, I was going to take the day off. It's like, no, I got to be at the tournament in 30 minutes. That's actually at the school, you know? It's like, oh, crap. So motivation only lasts a little while, so you have to. It seems like when people want to cut or have to cut weight or they have to do a tournament, somehow they get really hungry and get really lazy. So it's like, no, if you signed up for a tournament, now you have to bite the bullet and do exactly what you need to do the best you can. So
Yeah.
There's no hiding from that if you
Nope.
signed up for it. So you better be
Yeah.
ready. Everyone's watching.
Mm-hmm. I encourage people to go to the tournament first before they compete because they will have less nerves, but they'll feel, oh, wow. So if I was competing today, this is how I'd probably feel. So usually they go to the next tournament. When they go compete, they're already familiar with everything, the weigh-ins, the mats, people yelling at each other. And, you know, so some people freeze up when that happens.
That's exactly what I did. And I thought that was great. I went and watched my friends first to see what
Mhm.
it would be like and
Yeah.
what it was like for them. And then I did it. And I thought that was
It's a good
great.
idea. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't competed yet. I think we talk about this just about every episode, but a seasoned blue belt here, so I'm about to quit. But it's like,
Don't do it.
yeah, no, and I haven't competed yet, and it's I definitely think 2023 is going to be the year I do it. I hear you should compete at least once at every belt. Like, what is your
Just
mindset when it
compete
comes to
once to see
competing?
if you like it at all. Because that one time will be an icebreaker, but it's also just a. Sorry, my son's talking.
Oh, you're good.
It's just an eye opener, and I mean, it's not your teammate. Sometimes they do compete against each other, but it's not your teammate, so it's a different. There's things that train from competing that you can't get anywhere else. I know
Yeah,
people that are scared to compete, but they're so good in the gym, and it's like that's a weak link, man. Like that's a mental weak link. It's like you're so good in the gym with your teammates, man. Why don't you try? Like just try. It's like, man, I can't. I can't. I'm scared. Wow. Okay, I've been scared my entire time. Um, I'm gonna walk around at 145 and I own a school. Think about these years of all these big people come in here try to prove a point. It's like that can be more scary than competing. You
True.
compete, you go to your division. I don't know. Yeah, competing one time, huge for sure.
yeah. I think it's a good thing for people to do, and you talk about fear, and it kind of leans to that thing of people are even scared just to walk in the door. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, well, look, if you were even scared to walk in the door and now you're here and the conversation of competing is on the table. So just imagine if you would have never walked in the door, you would have never even had this conversation. So I think that could be like a good mental builder for them too. You know what I mean? Like things are scary. Going to class can be scary because you're like, man, what is going to happen today?
I remember these days. You're on the interstate, go to the school, and you realize like I already know who's going to be there for me. It's like, God, man, it's going to be a rough day, but do it anyways, and you feel amazing afterwards. And there would be no reason to have courage if you, man. Everyone's scared of something, you know. So these are great. That's a competition right there to yourself. Overcome something like that. It's amazing. I see it with kids, man, and that's what motivates me as an adult to do like the best I can. Because when you see little kids, like for one story, I had this girl. She lost her first 2 matches barely, but she's like shaking and crying. The mom says, "Hey, you need to talk to her. I don't think she's able to compete." I went over. I said, "Hey, you don't have to do it. You're fine." She stopped crying immediately. She says, "I'll do it." And then she went and whooped the next. But I never been so motivated in my life, man. That lit a fire under me. I was like, I got to compete next week, and I got to compete soon because this is a champion. This girl's like, I don't know, 11, 12 years old, champion. She'll be a champion in something. Even if she quits jiu-jitsu tomorrow, she'll be a champion in something because she overcomes something like that. And I see adults that they would have been done, you know?
You just said you don't got to compete. You're like, all right, cool. Can you give me a ride home?
Yeah. Funny.
So, but so when it comes to like coaching adults and kids, do you have a different way of thinking when it, obviously you have to have a different way of teaching, but do you feel that there is skilled build in coaching kids and that translate over into coaching adults?
What's so on that same thing is I see less fear in the kids, so much fear in the adults. And I thought about this for a long time, and honestly, it's as simple as optimism. Like, kids have real optimism, and that's a superpower. Like, I see older guys that have it too, and that's why they stay younger. Like, I'm 38, but I'm very pretty still, kind of. But it's because optimism. Like, these kids don't see, they're not scared of anything. You know, I remember seeing kids that were scared of their shadows, but they'd jump on the mat to compete and have so much fun. When adults are not scared of anything, they walk around tough. They sign up for a division, and they're almost can't hold their bladder because they got to go to the bathroom so many times. They don't know what's going on. They look so panicked and rushed. So I think it's the mindset of the innocence too. It's like they just don't fear nothing. So optimism.
Yeah, the adult's probably building it up in their mind into something that it's not,
Mm-hmm.
and it's now you've got it, this huge thing in your head, and you just can't overcome it.
I've seen it on both sides. I've seen the adults that you would never expect to compete go win double gold, and then the adults you think, man, this guy's an athlete. He's just gonna wreck house, and he gets smoked. And I've seen it on both sides.
So what is the culture of your academy like? Do you have more of a casual, non-traditional jiu-jitsu kind of like flow? Because you mentioned like the Carlos Gracie or Carlson Gracie background. Like,
fine line. We know all the stuff. We know how to go to other schools and be etiquette. The etiquette, bow onto the mat, bow off. We don't line up for the adults anymore too much because I typically work out with them anyways. So it's like I'm just a training partner, as I think, as at least. But with the kids, I still keep the structure. We line up, we bow out, and everything. We're pretty low key, chill. We're pretty chill. I still keep a lot of the virtues up in the school as far as you have to have integrity to be here. So some things like that can be strict. Oh, hard work is very important to me. Like, I don't like people coming in and spar one hard round with a smaller person or a female and then take 2 rounds off. Like, that's not acceptable at all. So we keep it like tough like that, but it's at the same time it's family, very family environment.
Breaking news. Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make sure your drapes match your carpet. By going to manscaped.com and using the code ETP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Again, that's ETP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
it's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to the stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. My wife hates when I have stubble. She's like, don't even kiss me. Trim that mustache. And thanks Manscaped for making it possible now.
It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut for fixing faces. First off, the cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 haircutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extras and add-ons. That's right. Face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard.
The Pro Beer Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beer brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress.
So get 20% off and free shipping with the code ETP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code ETP20. Manscaped, Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths.
Thanks, Manscaped, for sponsoring this episode. How has it changed from when you first started? Like, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but was it straight, like, just every round was you're getting smashed? If you take a one round off, then you might as well just leave, or like how has it
Not
changed?
allowed back then. It was
Really?
absolutely not allowed. Like, so, okay, so it's funny. I have I have a lot of great coaches behind me, but 2 of them are great to mention. Dustin Dennis, which he's American, who went to Brazil and choked out Marcelo Garcia like at the brown belts, and like just a crazy guy. Okay, and then I have Adriano Lucio. Both of these guys are 5th degree black belts, both trained with BTT and they're original from Carlson Gracie, all these guys. But they're sun and moon different. Like, Dustin is the sun and he will burn you and scold you, and he is like the craziest, great guy, craziest coach you'll ever have. If you train with Dustin, no one's coach will ever scare you. You'll never look at anybody's coach and be like, well, I'm kind of scared of that dude's coach. No, you're fine. Adriano is very traditional in a judo sense, and he's very like white gi, like respectful, and we're here to train and flow. And he realized early on about the hard nosed and like being hurt, so he developed more of a training for like longevity. Both of them are so high level, it's crazy, but they're so different.
Which one do you prefer?
Ha, that's funny. For fighting, Dustin Dennis. For the art and longevity, Adrian Lucio. So I try to be in a fine line. I try to bring both of them around my students as in the ratio that I feel is best for them. Because I mean, again, Dustin prepares you. You talk about the mental thing. Absolute callous over your mental. Like, you have it all. You're fine. You're not going to be scared of some person that's across from you. Because the way.
Because the way he trains.
Yeah. His training sessions are harder than any fight I've ever been in my life.
Oof.
So,
Yeah, I like training every once in a while, having a couple harder rounds of sparring.
Sure.
John and I used to roll together, like 15-minute rounds when it was just me and him at an open mat in Japan. It was like Sunday we meet up, we would watch like Roy Dean or some online instructional, practice some technique, and then we would just roll until we both were so tired we're like, okay, we should probably go home now. Like, and I feel there's a lot of value in doing that also, but that's not for everyone. And I think people see people spar, their schoolmates spar hard or do certain things, and in their mind they get this idea of like, I have to do that with them now. You know what I mean? Or so they'll be scared of not wanting to roll with them because they see how they are with everyone else. How do you help your students like overcome that kind of mindset if they do have that?
Well, what's so cool about jiu-jitsu is it's you start to understand especially students wise, like I can understand their demeanor when they're rolling. So like if there's a new girl there, a newer girl, I know exactly who I can put her with that's gonna let her fight, gonna let her get better, but not like try to sit here and coach them and make them feel like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, but like they'll work on their defense for that girl so that girl can attack. And move back and forth instead of like just maul or just let them do something, because you don't want to just let someone do something either, because that's not realistic. Oh, here's my arm, you can take anything you want. No one does that, so I don't like that either. But there's always a time to do all that. Like the person who's just learning to drive the car again slow doesn't want to try to go with the best person in the room and hit the gas. Now my kid's trying to make a noise. But yeah, it's the right time. And then also with like the person, the age is huge. If I can go with anybody at like older than me, I don't have to rely on my athleticism as much. I can just focus on whatever that is for that day. And I'm trying to get better at my defense. Okay, let the older guy get side control on me. and I work out.
So speaking of, different factors playing into how you roll with someone, how does that play into promotions for you? Like how does like John isn't going to have the same technique and abilities as I
Mm-hmm.
do because we're what, like 12 years
Mm-hmm.
apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you look at that when it comes to
Oh yeah.
promotions and
So
whatnot?
I'm still new to getting promotions. I've only promoted one black belt. I've been a black belt for 4 years and 4.5 years, and I go down to Brazil to have my professor do the like co-promotion kind of deal. But it's usually their language. Like I want to know, like they don't have to be super athletic. They don't have to be. I just want their language to be up to par, so we can communicate on the mat. And typically, you can know, like a purple belt has a game plan. A purple belt has like a destination. A blue belt's still trying to figure out what they want, kind of deal. And white belts are lost, typically. White belts are lost. Blue belts are looking for stuff, and purple belts typically have a good A game they're looking for. And brown belts are dominant, mat dominance, but they should also, I feel like, know how to coach. That's something huge for me as a brown belt. Like if you're a brown belt with me, you should probably know how to make a white belt a really good blue belt. Um, and it just goes from there, like the hierarchy they made back in when it did.
So what's the biggest mistakes you see newer practitioners making that are slowing them down from progressing?
Just sparring just going to sparring days, not listening to professors, like they don't have them. We didn't have them back then, but we still listened for sources. Now they have all the sources and they don't listen to them. That's a big problem I notice. They just want to, oh, I see this on Instagram, so I want to try this. And you think I get really good at no gi. It's like, man, you're terrible, though. In the gi, you might want to, learn some of the basic stuff. Basics last throughout the storm. But they want to learn the hard nose stuff, they say. And I'm like, well, put the gi on because it can be pretty hard, actually. Or, with the wrestling. It's like, okay, we'll learn some judo, too. And people want to do what they're good at and only do what they think they know, so there's so much in jiu-jitsu, you can't cover it all, I don't think, in a lifetime.
Yeah, that's the truth right there. I remember when we first started, we were YouTube and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
At some point, we came to the realization that there's just too much out there.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to stop and focus on what they're teaching us in class,
and
just
yourself,
and just stick with
because
that.
everybody's game is going to be different. It's not like a karate where you're learning the same like harmonic movements. It's how athletic you are, how athletic you aren't. Who has just said this? Nick Gregoritas has a great book, Blueprint to Black Belt. And I tell all my students, like, yo, you're a white belt, you want to get this. They're like, oh, I don't want to be a black. There's no way I can get a black belt now. It's like, trust me. Blueprint to Black Belt. It talks about the three most important thing. It's like what it means is like physical attributes is number one, technical knowledge, and conceptual thinking. So these are the orders you want to think of. And attributes always number one. So it's like how athletic I am or how athletic I'm not is going to actually play into my game. Like not everybody can berimbolo or invert, or
Preach.
not everybody should wrestle because they didn't wrestle and they have bad knees. It's not a good idea to learn wrestling right now. But you could learn, like you said, if it's not just the sport and it's the martial art, you could learn parts of wrestling that would help your self-defense that you never would do in a sport, like because you're not playing a sport. The same thing with jiu-jitsu. People think like as a martial art, so if someone attacks you, you're going to sit down. It's like, absolutely not. Like,
Right.
no, the being on the ground is like the worst place you want to be. So we work from the worst place we could be and we get up. The whole game we play is sweep or submit from the bottom. Okay, sweep or submit. The person on top needs to pass. That's all jiu-jitsu is. It's like from top, you need to pass. Control, submit them. Okay. And at the bottom, you need to be able to neutralize, control them, sweep, and submit. That's it. So it's going to be real simplified, I think. And that's usually the game I have the new people play is us. Let's sweep or submit from full guard.
So when it comes to your students learning and like cross training and whatnot, how do you approach them with online resources and stuff like that? Do you kind of guide them in ways of finding good resources
Hmm.
that might help
Oh,
them?
sure.
Or do you just kind of say, hey, maybe we should wait a little
No, I
bit?
bring, oh man, because I'm a student for life. I feel like I love being a white belt in my heart. I have black belts come to my school all the time just so I can train, which is like, you guys pay attention because I'm learning this too. Like, I don't know what's going on. If y'all can, again, it's so much, there's no way. And I'm a slow learner. There's so much I can't, if there's 12 techniques on the table, I will get three. I know people like the brown belt I was talking about. If there's 12 techniques, he'll get 13. And it's like, I can't
Wow.
think like that. So I need people like that around me that can, oh, wait, what was that move? Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. That's my move now. But like, I try to bring as many black belts as I can around. If they don't know, they give me some more resources. It's a big deal about studying. Like, I didn't like to study necessarily for the school back in the day, but like, this is like so much to study all the time. As soon as I got my black belt, I realized I didn't know that much. And I mean, I got my first degree last year, and I was like, man, I don't know what the heck is going on because it's constantly evolving. These people are training smarter. Like I love this concept on training smarter, not harder. If you get more stuff done in an easier session, you can come back later. I feel like that's better. No, resources are huge. I remember Cronkleton told me after I got my blue belt, he said, now get on YouTube. Because I wasn't always around a black belt. But he says, now you're a blue belt, you can actually understand some of this stuff. Oh, okay, cool. And I would have trouble with like knee shield or something. I have a whole playlist on how to smash knee shield. And you know, and you learn from little references like that is definitely helpful.
So do you think a lot of what we were talking about earlier, maybe around privilege, is a lot of people now that are in their jiu-jitsu journey, just starting out, don't realize how good they have it with all these
So
resources and
good.
structure that wasn't
Dude,
there?
listen, the school that I'm in right now, it's, what is that word, bougie or something? It's like a
Yeah.
like a storefront, like with a central heating. I don't care about AC, but when it's winter time and you have a heater in your school, this is amazing. I used to wear
Hmm.
socks on the mat with a hoodie under my gi. We were in a warehouse for 12, 13 years. If it was 20 degrees outside, it was 20 degrees inside. So
Ooh.
Oh,
it's terrible. But now it's, man, this is so nice. These people walk in like, oh, yeah, I'm a jiu-jitsu, blah, blah, blah. Man, be quiet. Like, there's Instagram is terrible for this. Like, there's purple belts doing these instructionals on Instagram. And I'll remember these people like used to make fun of jiu-jitsu. Oh, boxing is better than this. Like, we do boxing. It's like we do real fighting. It's like, I'm gonna choke you unconscious. Like, you're crazy. And now they're on Instagram like, oh, look at my jiu-jitsu. Like, you're a poser. I don't like, my school is Weinishchke Martial Arts because I saw the bandwagon with jiu-jitsu and I was like, man, I don't want the bandwagon. I like the martial arts for what it is. I don't like it because oh, this is cool. When I was fighting, competing, they thought it was the stupidest thing ever. Like, what are you doing, Shane? You know, okay, well, I like this. And then next thing you know, is like everybody's like, the Ultimate Fighter gets on the TV, and it's like, you know what, Shane, that was pretty cool. How can I do that? Okay.
well, there's a lot of debate around a lot of people thinking jiu-jitsu might be getting a little soft. And Travis kind of alluded to it earlier when karate was really tough
Mm-hmm.
and then it got softer, and then you got to the tournament style
It
play.
just depends on where
Uh,
you're at.
you
Just
know,
depends.
but now you see the opposite, right? You see karate coming back, man. They got some really cool stuff you can
Combat
watch. Yeah,
karate looks so
yeah,
badass,
I
right.
saw
man.
it.
And you got combat jiu-jitsu, which is, a lot more realistic
Mm-hmm.
to me, because a lot of that stuff when we were first learning, I was like, man, I don't know how I'm just gonna hold somebody in this guard and not get slapped in the
Mm-hmm.
face. And then you got combat, they're getting slapped in the face, and you're like, all right, I'm getting out of this. Like,
See,
you know,
I've always when I teach my students, if you they can hit you, you're not training right. Because
Mm.
I did MMA first, so my jujitsu is more based on that. I feel like I see it. I have gone to a lot of seminars and I've been to other schools where they're like, all right, guys, so we grab the collar here, but their free hands are just moving around. It's like, man, that's
mm-hmm.
scary, bro. Because I've been elbowed in the face before by some pretty mean people. It's like you cannot have that, too many of those go to your head, you know. So
So what is your game? You mentioned that you're like 145 pounds. What's your game as a somewhat of a smaller person in jiu-jitsu?
What's funny is the more I focus on training my defense, is the more offense I get. So typically, it's like, especially a bigger guy, I would like to knee shield from the bottom, work for the back like a wrestle up. Always sweep or submit. I mean, I like to attack. The defense is important, but I feel like if I'm attacking the whole time, you have to just defend. So I try to, even if I'm tired, and I just still try to give a look. Still try to give a look and threaten the person, and then it turns out they might be more tired than me. Sometimes not so much, so they'll take my bluff. People say jiu-jitsu is like chess. I say jiu-jitsu is like chess, but with Texas Hold'em on the side. Because if you don't, you could have a bluff, and man, hopefully they take that bluff, but sometimes they don't. They're just, they could capitalize on that. But I mean, a big, strong guy that knows as much as you, realistically, they're going to kick your butt, man. So that's a problem that people don't. They're like, oh, but you're a black belt and you should be able to take out everybody. It's like, man, if you get a purple belt, 220-pound, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, oh man, that could be a long day. That could be a hard round.
I think my dog just ate my homework. I'm gonna have to. I'll be right back.
Yeah, it took me a couple years to come to that realization.
Yeah.
Where I was like, man, I really suck. And then I'm like, well, we both know the same thing.
That's just from Hollywood.
And they got me by 60 pounds, and they're 20 years younger.
Hollywood did that to a lot of people, because just the mystics of martial arts. People are like mystified by it, and people that wear black belts, you can't touch them. It's like, when I get a black belt, I can't wait to know everything. It's like, man, what? That's not how it is, actually, realistically. So I hear some people call their professors master, and okay, they're buying into the Hollywood thing, so.
I don't even really like calling it a dojo, because I feel it kind of is like I mean, I just call it an academy or a school or a gym, or you know what I mean? Some people are like, oh, I'm going to go to the dojo. I'm like,
I just think it's funny because, it's Japanese saying school. It means school, and then professor just means teacher in Portuguese. But I love it when coach, like when my students call me coach, I'm like, man, that's a title. I like this a lot. It's a responsibility to this title, I feel. So I like the term coach.
So speaking of coaching, how do you grow yourself besides the having black belts come and visiting and spar with them? When you're the head instructor, it's still just as important for you to learn as your students. How do you continue to grow to help your students?
Well, I'm always with them training. I never take days off, so I'm always training with them. I go to all their competitions, even if, obviously if I'm not competing, I'll still go to their competitions. I like to talk to them as far as like what their plans are, which is huge, because then if they have a goal, then it kind of gives me a goal within that. So it's like, well, you want to get better at your leg lock game or your back take game or anything like that. Anytime I get to do a personal with one of my students, I find something out, and it helps my game. So I just feel like constantly wanting to work with my students helps me evolve. Man, I've learned more in the last 2 years training jiu-jitsu than I have in 17 years. So I don't really see myself slowing down as far as learning.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it too, right? People think you get a black belt and that means you know everything, but it just makes you realize, from what I've heard, I mean, we're just blue belts, but from what I heard, the general consensus is it just makes you realize how much little you do know.
Before you got your blue belt, those moments that you're like, oh, that's why you do it. Man, when you get your black belt, it comes even a higher waves, because now you actually understand, like, oh, well, this is, there's pros and cons to everything. Sometimes the right move is not the right move. Sometimes the wrong move what is this? Like, I always tell my students, any move works, any move at the right time. But the coolest move you see on Instagram will never work at the wrong time. You know what I mean? It will never work if the wrong time is there. So timing is huge. Just learning something with timing can change your whole game. It's like, oh, so when do I do this armbar? Well, it's not going to work if I drag his arm across, because once I grab your arm, I'm on your arm. Now, if I can nonchalant put your hand on a mat, shift to an angle, shift off to a small angle, man, you never see it coming, and that's the setup. And that's where they ask you, it's like, man, how'd you do that? It's like, well, you weren't looking at this. So it's timing is always huge, and you can constantly develop timing. You see these older black belts, and like they're so slick because they're timing. It's not just because they've been, they're strong black belts and been training forever. No, it's they read your body language so good. That's how they know you're going to move this. They're going to put the hand on the mat. You might be doing something correct, and that's how they capitalize on you. Because not always, if you roll with someone who never makes mistakes, so what are you supposed to do against them? You got to make them make mistakes or like trick them. I like tricks. I like to do tricks. That's the bluff that I talk about too, though. Sometimes they don't take the bluff. If they take the bluff, those are the best submissions ever, man. They'll go right into it.
Yeah, you like it like you have a collar grip and they're in your like knee shield and you're like, oh no, you're passing my
Loop choke.
guard. Oops.
Yes, all the time, all the time. I will let them think like I want to collar drag them, so they put their base down and then they start dropping their shoulder line. Man, loop choke all day, and then if they defend the loop choke, you go back to the collar drag. So
yeah,
I like,
your students right now are going to be listening to this when it comes out. They're like, not doing that anymore. Thanks, coach.
I tell them all the time, and it messes me up sometimes, but then I learn stuff from it too. So this is great. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole idea, when we first start or even like seasoned blue belt, we have this idea in our head that the black belts or higher belts are, they're steps ahead of us, but like you just mentioned, we keep hearing it's not that they're steps ahead of us. They just know what you know and what you don't know, right? So they know if I do this, he doesn't know not to do this, right? So you're able to kind of herd the kittens in the direction that you want them to go. It's not necessarily your steps ahead of them. It's just that they don't know.
It can be
what they don't
something as
know.
so simple as just weight distribution. Like you won't do nothing wrong, but your weight distribution's off on the right corner. Okay, that's all I needed. You don't have to put your hand on the mat. Like everybody says, oh, you have to put their hand on the mat. No, you don't. You could do a bump sweep with their hands on you as long as the weight distribution is off. Man, that's no problem. Like if you try to bump sweep somebody, but they know you're going to bump sweep them, you're not going to bump sweep them. But as soon as you feel, okay, bump sweep, and it will work perfect. It will feel just amazing.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, just wait, because there's going to be a moment when you feel that timing or you're going to be sparring with someone. You're like, they made the mistake. Now I know what to do. You know what I mean? And then you hit it and it's like it's a small victory.
But that's when it's your
you're
technique.
Like, holy crap.
That's when you have a technique that is actually yours and you're building your jiu-jitsu. So I teach my students my game and I'm like, hey, this is a simple game. It probably sucks, but you guys can use it to get this better and like build your game. So then I have purple belts that play a game that I don't play, deep half, for instance, and I would have the purple belt train it for me. So now I have a good defense to deep half, but I don't have to learn that crap because, but it works great for him. So I like I use the students to evolve all the time, and it's a constant give and give back. So that's the way.
So the question that we like to kind of end the conversation with is, if you could give one piece of advice to a brand new white belt, someone just starting off in the gentle art, what would it be?
Do some of your own research and don't just listen to one person. And definitely train smarter, not harder. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. Oh, I gotta be this good. I gotta be that good, because it just comes over time. It's really not a sprint at all. Like if you could train a little bit every day, like small amounts, everybody can get really good in something as long as you put the time and the actual effort into it.
Yeah, definitely comparison is the opposite of joy, or what is it? The death of joy,
Yeah, don't
right?
compare
Like if
yourself.
you're constantly
Yep.
if you're constantly comparing yourself to just your friend that started the same time as you and say they get promoted and you don't, you're just hurting yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Like,
that's why it's
and don't become a
constantly
hater.
be a student. Like the belt, who care? The belts are for the instructor to know who you are and to like. I understand people want the instant gratification, but I mean, it's just not like that with jiu-jitsu. I don't feel like it's honestly like that. Anything worth anything. So why do you want it in jiu-jitsu?
Right.
Yeah, I constantly tell people a belt isn't like a representation of your skill. It's basically your coach showing like your progress and giving a thank you for your hard work. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
do you stripe at all?
sometimes. Yeah. I wasn't never used to promotions when I was training, so I'm still like I said, I'm still learning in on the promotion thing, and I understand a little more nowadays. But I still feel like I don't sell belts. There you go. So that's something important to me. Like no one ever buys a belt at my school. You get your gi free with the sign up anyway. So it's like I ever charge belts. I don't ever charge testing fees. You're getting tested every day. You're there with me. Jiu-jitsu's hard enough, so I don't have to be as crazy as some coaches are, like always hard on them. Sometimes there's a point of it, but I don't always have to be hard on them because jiu-jitsu itself is hard enough. So you show up every day and you have a rough life. I don't know what's going on outside of jiu-jitsu, so I don't try to do the best you can, really, but within means of it. Like actually do the best you can when you're there. Put your actual effort into it, you know. So that's huge, and you can tell. You can see with people's body language and know if they're there or if they're not there.
Yeah, absolutely. John, you got anything else?
No, man, you put out some. I'm gonna have to go re-listen to this one again because you put out some
something
good.
I can add real quick. I thought about.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Man, not everyone that wears a black belt is a good person. That's something so big that has been on. That's actually, I think, the reason I contacted you guys, because I see black belts. They're the blue girls get a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and next thing you know, black belt males are just in their DMs left and right. Like I have female students that get harassed almost. It's like, and just craziness. Like you hear stuff at certain schools that I just could not. No, I will kick people out of my school for just things like this. Like if you're a terrible person, I cannot deal with that. And that's a lot of people think, again, the mystique of the martial arts. Oh, they're a black belt. That means they have honor and they're such good people. And man, no.
Wrong.
I think age plays a lot into that because, you know, when I started, I was almost 40, right? And I can respect a belt, but I have to respect the person before I'm going to respect the belt. And, but I think for somebody that might be 18 or 19 or younger and just getting into it, I don't know if they'll understand that. They might see the belt and immediately say that's a good person.
That's a big issue I see right now in jiu-jitsu. And it's because it's getting so big. There's more black belts nowadays than it used to be. So it's getting wild. It's getting wild out there, I see.
Yeah. Did you see that? Was it the black belt? No, brown belt that promoted the two brown belts to black belt.
His two wives.
Craziest thing ever.
Then the two. I just watched that the other day and I was like, this is going to be really confusing.
I don't even know what's happening there. And I watched it. I was like, man, this is crazy.
I was like, that is very bizarre.
Yeah, gotta keep it legit, right?
Yes.
So, hey, but Shane, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. This was a great conversation. I think people are going to gain a lot of stuff from what you have to say, and especially when it comes to like the privilege that we have now in jiu-jitsu. That'll probably be the title of the the episode, Privilege of Modern Jiu-Jitsu, that people probably don't even realize. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It was a great conversation.
I appreciate you
If
guys.
people want to follow you, where can they find you at?
TallahasseeJujitsu.com is my website.
Daddy.
That's the first time we've had that happen.
He's trying to get my
You're
attention.
famous.
I'm like, okay, hold on. But TallahasseeJujitsu.com and Weinishchke Martial Arts is the name of the school. Very hard to spell this. But Tallahassee Jiu-Jitsu is very easy, and that's the easiest way to find all those social media links.
Perfect, man. Well, John, you got anything else?
No, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, Shane. Hey, no problem. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home. And remember, no oil checks here.
Oos.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Go on.